Hi, Paul Mott speaking. This is lesson number 3 in our 4-part introductory series on how to use CrystalWerx. So in lesson number 1, we learned how to import data from an Excel spreadsheet. In this case, it was some SAP data. So we took this data and moved it directly into CrystalWerx. In lesson number 2, we learned how to go into the studio and set up our types and our views so that we're able to see the data the way we wanted to see it in the factory. When we look at the tables, we can see just the columns we want to see, and we can have various formatting features here on the columns. So in lesson number 3 today, we're going to go ahead and think about what it would take to start editing this data. So we're going to create some views that are specific for editing, and then we're also going to actually put in some validation rules and some automatic calculations to make sure that things are always kept in sync. So in order to do this, let's start with the MView table, which is the material valuation table from SAP. And essentially what we'd like to do is we'd like to have people give them the ability to modify either the total stock or the standard price. So we created a view in lesson number 2 called Browse, which we can use right now. And if we just go in and hit the edit button on this table, in fact, we can go ahead and start editing away right here all we want. Just type in a 1 and hit save, and it's changed. Okay. Now, the problem with that is that we probably don't want to allow people to change a lot of these columns, but some of them we don't want changed at all. So we actually need a view that will control which columns can be edited. And in order to do that, we're going to go back to the studio. So I'm going to go onto this other tab here, and we're going to look at our views for the MView table, MVEW table. And first of all, we had this thing called Browse. And really, when you're browsing, you shouldn't even be able to edit at all. So I think step number 1 will be that we'll change this Browse view to be read-only on all the fields. So I can go through each one of these columns and choose between read-only, the default, which is a text input box, or a checkbox, or a drop-down list, a select box. So I'm going to just take a minute to change these all to read-only in the Browse view. And this will ensure that when someone is browsing or using this view, that's all they can do is just look. They can't actually change any of these columns. All right, and just one more to go here, and we are done. Okay. Now for this particular type, MVEW, I actually had an everything view, which I already deleted because it's just too much. I could recreate it if I want to, but I've already deleted it. So all I have is the Browse view now. And if I go look at the table and reload it again here, I will see that if I try and edit something using the Browse view, well, I can't seem to edit anything. It's not really allowing me to change any of these. And that's precisely what I wanted. All right, well, now I'm going to go back to the studio, and I'm going to create a separate view that will allow us to edit just the total stock column and just the standard price column. So in order to do that, I could start from scratch, or I could, let's see, go back to the studio here. I could just take these columns right here and, or actually what I could do is go to the Browse thing right here. I could grab these columns right here, copy those, now go back, paste that in, and just call this edit. And that'll work. It'll give me pretty much the exact same columns, but then I have to go through and change everything again, change the formatting. So there's a little shortcut trick here that makes life easier. When you have a view that you like and you want to just change it a little bit, you can download the XML representation of this view. So we'll save that. We'll go ahead and open that folder. We'll just load this up into Notepad. It's an XML file, an XML snippet. we're just going to select that and copy it, and we're done with that. And now I'm going to go back here to my views and say that I'd like to create a new view called Edit. And instead of having the columns, I'm going to paste in my little XML snippet here, create that new view. So now when I go look at the Edit column, it pretty much preserved everything I had before, the formatting and the input type. But I am going to actually change this now and say that, okay, well, you can edit the total stock and you can edit the standard price. Okay. And now when I go back to the factory and reload this table, I see that I have my browse view and I also have the edit view. And when I select the edit view, I can change the stock or the price. Okay, so that's great. That's pretty much what I wanted. Now, if I look at this and I see that, I'll just escape from that. I don't really want to change that. I'll just undo that. There we go. Now, if I look at this, I can see that I have a lot of zeros here. So what I'm really interested in looking at here is where I have a non-zero stock. So I'm going to add in a filter right now. And I'm going to say only show me stuff where the total stock is greater than 0. Okay. All right, so there's my total stock, greater than 0. And I'm going to go ahead and sort there. And okay, so let's suppose here that I'm looking at this, I see that I have 40,000 in stock, and the price of each one is $5, and that gives me a total value of 2 million. So if I allow someone to edit this, let's suppose I change this to 45. That total value is wrong now. Okay, 5 times 45, it should be higher than that. That's not correct. So what we need to do here is we need to set up a rule so that whenever someone changes one of these values, it will automatically get updated. And we can do that very easily in CrystalWerx by going back into the studio, and we're going to look at our table type. So the rules are actually attached at the lowest level of the column definition, which is in the table type. So if I look at the MView table type here, basically what I want to do is I want to add a rule onto my total value column. So I'm going to edit this column, and I'm going to edit the rules. And I have some other things I can do here to help me validate things. But for purposes of this demo, I'm going to create a custom rule, and I'm going to call it autofill. And I'm going to add that new rule. And basically, a rule can have conditions or value setters. So I'm going to basically skip the condition. This is something I want to happen all the time with no conditions, and go straight to the value setter and say that the total value, which is the column I'm going to be working on here, I'm going to edit this now. The total value should be set to the total stock, which I'll say use that column. And then I'm just going to use times to indicate multiplication times the standard price and use that column. So I have added this value setter. I'll save it. I'll save these rules, and that's it. Now when I go back to the table, and let's reload this table, and we'll go ahead and get back here to 40,000. So if I edit this now and change this to say 45, nothing happened. But if I turn on validation, which turns on the validation engine, aha, now it's changing. And in fact, as long as I have the validation engine on, anytime I make a change, if I change it back, it changes. If I change it over here, it changes. So now this is kind of like an Excel spreadsheet in that I've had basically a formula on this column, and this will execute anytime we're dealing with this type of data. That rule is just permanently embedded there, and it'll always be available to us. So whenever we make any kind of edits, things will automatically be updated. So that's really nice. Now, I noticed something when I was looking at this data. We had some situations here where we have a total stock of 0 and a standard price. Well, that's fine, but I don't think the opposite is fine. So to illustrate what I'm looking at, let's turn off the validation engine for now. Let's go ahead and set up a filter here where we say that we're looking for the total stock being greater than 0. And so that means we have some on hand, and the standard price is 0, but we don't know how much it costs or what the total value is. So I'm considering this an error that needs to be addressed. So whenever the standard price is 0 and the total stock is above 0, that's kind of an error condition. All right, we can capture that with a rule. So to capture that, we'll go back to our studio. And we're again looking at our in-view table types. And this time we're going to put our rule onto the standard price. So we're going to edit that column, edit the rules. And we want to give this rule a name. So I'm going to call it the name of this rule. We need price data. It's missing. Okay. And this rule is got some conditions, and the conditions we're looking for are the situation is that the standard price is equal to 0. Save that. And I'll add another condition here. And you notice they're being ANDed together. And the total stock that we have on hand is greater than 0. Right? We'll save that. So this is a rule, and when these conditions are met, I could set some value, but all I really want to do is emit a message that says that the price is required. Okay, that's our validation message. All right, so that's everything we need right there. We'll go ahead and save these rules, and we'll go back to the factory on our other tab here. We'll reload this table, in-view table, and this time we will turn on the validation engine. And I don't really see anything happening, but as I scroll through the data, sure enough, there's one right there where the price is required. So I have total value 0, standard price 0. In fact, if I want to not have to hunt for those, there's a feature here in CrystalWerx that just says hide the valid rows. And this will go through and show me all of the rows that need to be fixed. So essentially what we need to do on these to make the problem go away is put in some kind of a value. And then it will become a valid row, and CrystalWerx won't complain about it anymore. So this is a great way to validate your data and make sure that it's right. And in fact, you might have a large amount of data where there's a large number of errors and you'd like to know how many. There's a feature here called validation report. So we'll say generate a new validation report, and that starts a background process for us where it goes through and checks every row in the table. We get a notification up here that the validation has been completed, and we can see that there were 19 cases where the price is required and it's not there on the standard price. So this report would show us every rule condition that needs to be checked where there's been a validation problem. Well, in just a few simple steps here, we were able to go through and change our table definition to add rules. And these rules could be used to automatically set a value or capture values that seem to be invalid and require attention. So that concludes lesson 3. And in the next lesson, we're going to conclude our four-part series by showing you how to use CrystalWerx to actually manipulate and combine this data and generate reports in different formats, different types of data tables. So that's it for this demo. Thank you.